As we speak, people in Gaza are dying. They are not only dying from bombs and strike. Soon, many more will die from the consequences of siege imposed on the Gaza Strip. Basic services are crumbling. Medicine is running out. Food and water are running out. The streets of Gaza have started overflowing with sewage. Gaza is on the brink of a massive health hazard as the risk of diseases are looming. A few days ago, I warned that we will not be able to continue our humanitarian operation if we do not get the fuel supply. My warning still stands. Over the last few days, UNRWA has drastically limited its consumption of fuel, but this came at a cost. Our team had to make tough decisions that no humanitarian workers should do. What needs more support? Bakeries, water station, life support machine in a hospital? All this needs fuel to function. The siege means that food, water and fuel, all basic commodities, are being used to collectively punish more than 2 million people, among them a majority of children and women. There have been intense negotiations and endless shuttle diplomacy to open a humanitarian supply line. So far, it has only resulted in a handful of aid convoys. This will not reverse the fact that Gaza is being strangled. The people of Gaza feel shunned, alienated, and abandoned. Over the last week, I followed very closely the focus about the number of trucks entering in Gaza. Many of us saw in these trucks a glimmer of hope. This is, however, becoming a distraction. These few trucks are nothing more than a crumbs that will not make a difference for the 2 million people in the street. We should avoid conveying the message that few trucks a day means the siege is lifted for humanitarian aid. This is not true. The current system in place is geared to fail. What is needed is meaningful and uninterrupted aid flow. And to succeed, we need a humanitarian ceasefire to ensure this aid reaches those in need. This should not be too much to ask. Civilians are already paid a staggering price. More than 1 million people displaced, entire neighborhood flattened, thousands killed, thousands more injured, with almost no access to hospitals anymore. And all this under our daily and constant watch. Every day is also becoming a sad day for the United Nations and UNRWA, as the number of our colleagues killed is increasing. Today, at least 57 colleagues of mine are confirmed killed. In one day, we had confirmation that 15 were killed. And these are mothers, fathers, wonderful people who have just dedicated their life to their communities. And if they were not in Gaza, they could have been your neighbor. One of our colleagues 2 days ago died while he was going to the bakery to pick bread. He left 6 children behind, 6 displaced children in shelter. And meanwhile, we have thousands of UNRWA colleagues who, despite the fact they share the same loss, fear and daily struggle of millions of Gazans, put on the UN vest and go to work. They are, for me, the true heroes. Our teams are also the ones going to the border late at night with these few trucks. And after having waited for a day to get approval and clearances until it is completed, and they carry boxes, offload, download trucks in the dark while bombardment and aerial strikes are taking place. My colleagues are the face of humanity during what I would describe one of the darkest hours. But you know, they also absorb the anxiety and the anger of all those displaced in UNRWA shelter. They are taking, my colleagues, the heat as the community, understandably, are angry, hungry, and frustrated. We are almost 3 weeks in this war, and people are turning their despair to UNRWA. This is normal. We are the face of the international community, the same international community which seems to have turned its back to the Gazan. And it pains me that humanitarian aid, a very basic right for people, is constantly questioned, while at the same time despair is live-streamed under our watch. My colleagues in Gaza report that the last remaining public services are collapsing. Our aid operation is crumbling. And for the first time ever, they report that now people are hungry. Civil order is collapsing, and anger starts to be channeled towards my colleagues. How long can we last? I don't know, but certainly no more than a few days. Let me also say that many argue that aid cannot enter because of aid diversion. Let me be clear. We have solid monitoring mechanism. UNRWA is a direct provider of assistance to people in need. All our vendors and partners are vetted against the sanction list. We give aid to those who need it most. Our convoys are notified and deconflicted. UNRWA does not and will not divert any humanitarian aid into the wrong hands. Finally, you have heard our calls and repeated calls for the rule of wars to be applied to this war too. It means to apply the international humanitarian law means the application of the principle of proportionality and distinction. Civilians have to be spared. Hospitals, schools, UN premises hosting hundreds of thousands of displaced people seeking safety have to be respected. To do so, we need also, and here I think for me it's an important point, we need also to see the human face of Gazan civilian. To equal Gaza with Hamas is a very dangerous and misleading. It is an equation aimed at dehumanizing people, aimed at making the unjustifiable justifiable. Keeping our humanity means showing that the people in Gaza deserve our empathy and our compassion. No one can claim I did not know, as images, footages, and voices of unspeakable suffering continue to come out by the hour from Gaza. We cannot anymore turn a blind eye to this human tragedy. Millions of people are asking, especially in this region, especially in Gaza, why does the world not have the will to act and put an end to this hell on earth? They deserve an answer. Delaying it will deepen the polarization in this region and increase the risk of spillover. Finally, as Commissioner General, I intend to visit Gaza to express solidarity and amplify the voices of the communities and of our staff. Gaza is the place where I almost started my career 30 years ago, and this is where I feel I need to be. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take 3 questions only. Introduce yourself, please.
Ines Locatera from ABC News. On this issue of fuel, can you tell us how much fuel you still have in reserve? Can you also confirm?
We've been hearing there from Philip Lazzarini from the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees. Our chief foreign editor, Robert Parsons, is still in studio with me. Rob, we heard some strong words there. Palestinians feeling shunned, alienated, abandoned, images of streets overflowing with sewage, and Philip Lazzarini saying that the international community is essentially turning its back on Gaza. What do you make of what we've been hearing?
Well, I mean, UNRWA has been saying this for some days already, and the situation is clearly getting worse and worse. He's saying that the situation is so bad now that they're going to have to make a decision about pulling out because of what they can no longer do, effectively. He said that the decisions they're having to make are appalling. You know, how should they use the little fuel that they've got? Should it be used for firing up bakeries, for instance, so that people can get bread? Or should that fuel be directed to hospitals for incubators, for instance? Or in the hospitals, should the fuel go from incubators to life support systems? You know, impossible decisions are having to be made, which shouldn't have to be made. And he said that the convoys that are getting through are just so small. They're just crumbs that really do nothing to help the situation. The community there, he said, is literally being strangled. People are getting to the point now where they're starving to death. You know, you mentioned the problems with disease. There's no water. There are no medicines. The fuel situation has become absolutely critical. And he was saying that you just have to get the supply system working. It's no good having just 2 or 3 trucks or maybe even a dozen trucks come through. Far more than that is needed. You know, it comes back to what the EU was talking about when it passed its resolution yesterday. There has to be a regular system with humanitarian corridors, and on a daily basis, that have to be hours where those convoys can get through and make sure that the aid is delivered on a regular basis to the people of Gaza.
And he said there in the last couple of minutes as well that another 8 trucks carrying aid expected to be allowed into Gaza today. But as you say, it's a drop in the ocean.
But that 8 trucks is not going to do it. Yeah. I mean, they were talking about a week or so ago. The UN was saying you need at least 100 trucks a day to make a difference.
And Rob, then just in terms of what he is calling for, you're saying we've been hearing this over recent days, but is it actually likely to be heeded? The UN, Israel, the US, they're in talks, they're wrangling over the details of this aid coming into Gaza. What's going to happen there?
Well, the position, as we've said, is getting steadily worse. So critical, in fact, that UNRWA is talking about having to pull out, not least because, as he pointed out there, Philip Lazzarini, the UNRWA team working in Gaza are coming in for increasing criticism from the people of Gaza itself, because they are the face of the international community there. This at a time when 57 UNRWA operatives have been killed by the bombardment of Gaza over the last 2 to 3 weeks. They're suffering as much as anybody. You know, but they are, as the United Nations, they are the face of the world for the people of Gaza, who are frustrated, angry, desperate. And they're taking it out on the UN staff who are there. So they're having to face really tough decisions about what they do. And at the moment, despite the fact that the pressure on Israel from the international community, from the United Nations, we saw it yesterday, from the European Union, we saw it again yesterday, from the United States, and many other political leaders around the world. Emmanuel Macron, not very long ago, the French president was in Israel as well to put pressure on the Israelis to accept, to allow humanitarian convoys to get through, for corridors to be set up. Despite that, it's not happening at the moment, at least not on the level required. Israel clearly is going to come under increasing pressure, but we haven't even gone. We were just talking a few moments ago about the ground offensive. You know, if it gets to the point where there's going to be a ground offensive, what we're seeing today is going to be nothing to what will happen in a short while from now.
Rob, thank you so much for that. That's Rob Parsons, our Chief Foreign Editor here at France 24, joining us with the latest there from the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees.